Okay, so welcome to another edition of Priority Message, the podcast from the Fire and Rescue Services Association. And we are already in Series 3. And this podcast, I'm going to be joined by Mark Palmer, our president of the FRSA, who is based in the southwest of England, and Gavin Brooks, who is operational on-call firefighter in the southwest region and is also a co-responder. So therefore it's no surprise that the topic of conversation will be about co-responding and the events that are taking place currently in the southwest region. We have a situation um, earlier on this year whereby Southwestern Ambulance Service Trust decided that they wish to phase out over a 12-month period fire co-responders and focus on their community volunteers instead. So we wanted to, one, discuss that to raise awareness of the issue, to discuss the campaign that we've been undertaking for a number of months, and we wanted people to understand what co-responding is, those who don't, the importance of co-responding, and the fact that, in our opinion, not just our opinion, but within the governments, both local and national, that there should be more collaboration, not less, between the blue light services. So, first of all, can I welcome Gavin, your first time on the pod? Fantastic to have you here. Hopefully, you're going to educate certainly me, maybe not so much Mark, who's certainly touched on co-responding for a number of years now. But just an introduction from you would be fantastic, just to educate the listener and the viewer, some of your background and what co-responding is and how you've got involved.
I'm Gavin. I've been in the on-call for almost 25 years now. Joined back in 2000, which was just a year or two after sort of co-responding was introduced. When I joined in 2000, you sort of back in the day when we used to actually turn out to co-responders in the fire plants back then, as it was, you were sort of gradually sort of shown the ropes, sort of just riding as to oversee what was going on with a trained crew. And it was sort of natural progression that as we were doing that, then we sort of took part in the necessary courses so then we could become active parts of the crew. And obviously, since then, it's developed. Obviously, don't turn out in the fire plants anymore. We've got our own dedicated vehicle. The role of the co-responder is to provide sort of immediate first aid, CPR for what the ambulance class is category 1 call. So anything from chest pains, cardiac arrest, shortness of breath, severe asthma, prolonged fitting, or sort of traumatic bleeding, anything along them lines, which they class as life-threatening, we will attend if we're the nearest crew to be there before the ambulance. Obviously, sort of living in rural Devon, we can sort of be, there 20 minutes before the ambulance. So it does make a real difference. And it has made a real difference over the past, 27 years since they've been co-responding here. Many lives have been saved over the years. A lot of patients' outcome has improved for the better for us being there. It was only sort of last year I attended an 18-year-old who went into sudden cardiac arrest not far from here. And we heard sort of towards the end of last year that he's now made a full recovery. And if it hadn't been for us, then that person would have been here. So it's definitely a worthwhile scheme.
And it's a common response when I speak to anybody who's undertaken co-responding, is that saving life, which is what we're all here, save and protect life is what we're all here to do. The amount of lives you will have influenced where they're walking around today due to your intervention far outweighs the equivalent when it comes to responding to generic fire incidents.
Yes, without a doubt, 100%. Over these 27 years, yes, of course, we do help people in fire situations, but it's not normally a life or death situation you're in. And yes, without a doubt, the amount of people we've saved and helped is far greater with the co-responder scheme.
I think it's also really important to make this point as well, that this isn't about replacing ambulance technicians or ambulances. This is about complementing them and providing some intervention while they continue to respond to the same incident.
Yes, yeah, and that's always been the case. So whenever we get a co-responder call, there's always an ambulance responding on blue lights to the call as it's coming as the highest priority. We're never there to sort of discharge at home or anything along them lines, because the majority of the time they do require hospital treatment or further sort of pathways to getting their health sort of better as it would be. So yeah, like you said, an ambulance is always there, and we're there to sort of complement the SWASFT
Yeah.
and the paramedic crews.
And you've highlighted the fact that you're based in a rural area, like a number of on-call stations are around the country, and the response times to enable the ambulance to, or the NHS, I suppose I should say, to provide a response within the national timescale, which off the top of my head, I think it's something like 8 minutes mark. I don't know
Yeah,
whether you can clarify that, but to enable them to hit that target as many times as possible, they've utilised both community volunteer responders and the fire service in terms of co-responders to enable them to hit that target to some degree. Because without that intervention from co-responders, the patient would be waiting there for a longer period of time, which is not something any of us want.
no, and that is correct. Yeah, as you stated, I do believe for a Category 1 call, they're supposed to have a, as they call it, a resource there within 8 minutes. And yeah, I guess that's where we come in as fire co-responders, to obviously help them achieve that that level of time, if you will. But it's obviously there for us to sort of help with the patient care. So
And then there's also an argument about, I mean, you don't do it in Devon, and I understand that it's evolved. There previously was an argument about responding in a fire appliance, and you're tying up a fire appliance that could otherwise respond to a different type of incident, etc. Um, but Devon's evolved because, as you said, the brigade has been doing it for over 2 decades now, almost three
yeah,
decades. And then rather than use a fire appliance, you use a dedicated vehicle.
yeah, I think it changed round about 2008, 2009. I'm not sure the exact time period when they sort of moved away from riding in the fire appliance to having our own dedicated vehicle, which over the years has proved beneficial in the fact we've had it before, even last night, as it would be, that the fire appliance will be out on a call, a separate incident, and at the same time, a co-responder call will come in, and we're still available. So I don't know what the situation's like in other stations, um, but there is quite a bit of time when we can sort of crew both if there's obviously enough people around. So which obviously benefits the fire appliance availability, and it obviously benefits us providing cover for SWAST.
But I think that's fantastic. But I would, anybody who decries responding to a co-responder call in a fire appliance, my pushback would be um, that that particular argument about what if you miss another call. The fact is that fire appliance is going to a life-threatening incident, and I think we would all, particularly if we're in that situation where we're that individual or it's a loved one, we would want to respond to that incident rather than sit there, have a fire appliance available that might be responding to an AFA.
Oh yes, you're completely right. I mean, as you state, back in the early days, there was a little bit of kickback about the fire appliance being off the run, or because it was on a corresponder call. But that's certainly isn't the case. I wouldn't like to think nowadays as much. As we've already discussed, it's proven that we provide more level of care and enhance and save more lives through corresponding than we ever will through fires. It's obviously a great thing that over the years, with better fire safety, better road safety, and all that, that fire related deaths are generally going down and down and down. Whereas the need for an ambulance, as we see all too often in the news, is going up and up and up for whatever reason that may be. So yeah, it's definitely got its place in the fire service and in the community. So
I'd be really interested, Gavin, if you can talk us through the impact to you and your colleagues being able to respond to co-responder calls compared to those stations that aren't able to respond to co-responder calls. And I'm thinking about call levels, income, morale, recruitment and retention. To me, from the outside looking in, there are a huge amount of positives by a service collaborating with an ambulance service
yeah,
to ensure that some of their crew, because we'll talk about numbers in a moment, but some of their employees are able to respond to fire corresponder calls.
yeah. I mean, that's a good point, Tristan. Obviously, I'm sort of got the best of both because I obviously provide fire cover and corresponder cover, so I get a good mix of operational calls. Also call volume. We're sort of the station I'm at. We sort of average. I think over the past 10 years, we've averaged about 120 corresponder calls a year, which is the average. So just over 2 a week on average. And our fire call average is less than that, probably 90 to 100 fire calls a year. So by sort of doing both, you get the best of both worlds. Whereas you could have some stations that don't correspond and are quiet on fire, and obviously for their sort of morale and motivation to provide cover may be lower. And also you did touch obviously on sort of the sort of wage you get from it. Obviously it does benefit those who do both, who can provide extra cover with more of an income. So it makes your work-life balance a bit better. You may be working a bit more, but at the end of the month, you're sort of, you've got the rewards from that, and also the rewards from knowing that you've been out helping people in your community.
So it helps to make the fire station sustainable. If you're responding to 90 to 100 fire calls a year, I can imagine that makes providing availability a lot more difficult, knowing that you might not get a call compared with opening it up to corresponding as well. So huge amount of benefit there in terms of both earnings capacity, but more importantly, availability.
Yes, definitely. I don't know obviously now how other stations work, but generally if I'm on for fire, then depending on who else is on, I'll be on for I'll sort of do both rows, if that makes sense. I'll be on for fire and corresponding. But then if I'm off call for fire, and if there's either short crew, I will then correspond volunteer. So I'm not getting paid any availability hours for providing that cover. So again, it's providing that sort of constant near 24/7 corresponding cover as best as we can, and which we have done very well over the past sort of 27 years. We can provide a more level of corresponding than we can fire cover. Of course, that's based purely on the fact you need less numbers, of course.
Is it
But
so?
at
Is
least
it
if
two? Do you double crew for corresponding and
um
a minimum crew for the pump of four?
Yeah. So basically, yeah. So as you said, a minimum crew of 4. Yeah, corresponding. You can take 2. If you've got 2 on call, they can go. But then sometimes, depending on what the call is, if it's something that because obviously I've got quite a bit of experience, and so's the other colleagues that do it. If it's something that's going to be like shortness of breath or something that you feel you can manage, and the other person may not go on the correspondent call because it means that they can stay back and keep the appliance available, if that makes sense. And there has been times when I will solo respond if there's no other corresponder around, because my feeling is, I know people have differing views on solo responding, but I would rather know that I've gone and done my best as opposed to booking off and not turning up at all.
Yeah.
Which is something I'm happy with. And I know that obviously everyone has their own ideas or opinions on whether they want to solo respond, but generally, majority of the time it's 2. And I
So
think probably the majority of stations are the same with that.
just before I move over to Mark, can you just talk to me about training? How much training is involved to be a co-responder?
Um, in Devon and Somerset, they've got 2 level tiers of casualty care or trauma care, whatever they sort of call it now. So you've got a level 1, which is basically a 3-day course, and a level 2, which is a 5-day course, which just includes some extra sort of training, etc. And then there used to be sort of a separate corresponding course, but they sort of amalgamated it into this level 2 course, which I think some non-corresponder stations do. So I think some of the whole time do it. The level 2 is more advanced type training. And then to become a corresponder, once you've got the level 2 ticket, you've done your 5-day course, you get in touch with the fire academy. They'll arrange like enhanced DBS check for you, get paperwork sorted in the background with SWASFT. You then get issued an ID badge, and then you're then invited to do a shift with the ambulance, on a frontline ambulance, sort of a 12-hour shift. Just, a bit of experience, bit of sort of background, and get you on the road sort of thing. And then you're pretty much clear to sort of be a co-responder after that, basically. And then moving forward from that, you obviously have to do your requalification every 3 years or whatever. But we do have a paramedic that comes in every 3 months, and we do like just quarterly training for 2 hours not on a drill night, just to sort of catch up with any changes that there may have been, etc. Just practice various scenarios, various topics, and then once a year you sort of have what they call like your basic life assessment, which is just showing you can use the defibrillator safely. They'll set up scenarios, etc., like that, and then once you've done that, then you've sort of cleared for another sort of 12 months, really. So
it sounds like a definite, a manageable amount of training from
yeah,
what you've
but like I said,
described.
once you've got past the initial like 5-day course, it's not too much after to keep the skill, basically. Like I said, it's 2 hours every 3 months, and then just a yearly assessments to remain active as a co-responder.
Okay, so we've been speaking for about 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and everything's positive. It sounds like a fantastic scheme. The individuals taking part in it see the reward. Obviously, the patients, the members of the public get a huge benefit from it. This is when I'll bring you in, Mark. Um, what problem have we now got that is jeopardising fire co-responders?
Okay. First of all, I just want to clarify with the courses, the levels of courses. What Gavin's explaining in Devon and Somerset, we do a level 1 in course, which is basically first aid in the workplace, and the level 2 is actually a level 3 qualification. So all our co-responders are qualified at level 3 qualification in casualty care, which is the same as the community responders. So just clarifying that on there.
That's an important clarification. So that's exactly the same qualification as community volunteers hold.
Yes, because they hold a level 3 casualty care qualification. So I believe.
So, what problem have we encountered over the past few months, Mark?
So obviously we was notified as a representative body that SWASFT were pulling out of the agreement. Obviously we've been supportive of co-responding, broadening the role for a number of years, like you said. So obviously straight away that then is going against our principles of broadening the role of the firefighter and trying to get our firefighters out there in the community, providing much needed support.
So a few weeks ago, or probably a number of months ago now, actually, we become aware that SWAS were looking to stop or phase out fire co-responders. And this is important to note, this is specifically in the southwest. So in the southwest, we've got ambulance trusts around the country, and in the southwest of England, we've got the South Western Ambulance Service that we refer to as SWAST, the South Western Ambulance Service Trust. So they've decided that they are going to phase out over a 12-month period fire co-responders in the whole of the region.
Yes.
You had heard rumours that this was likely to happen, but there was nothing formal until a month or two ago.
Yeah. Yes.
And obviously that's when, being a trade union, independent trade union as we are, we then kicked in to campaign mode. We tried to obtain as much information as possible with regards to the proposal, the reasons behind the proposal, how that was going to land with members, how that was going to impact public safety, etc. So we're still in the early stages of that. But I know you've appeared on BBC and been speaking to other media outlets to argue that the decision of SWAST, the proposal of SWAST, is the wrong action to take at this point in time, and we need to pause the phasing out of fire co-responders while we continue discussions and work out an alternative route. Is that a correct synopsis?
Yes. Yeah. So originally we basically wanted to get to the bottom of why SWASFT made that decision. So we tried to get as much information as we could. So obviously what we need to do is have that information so that we could actually then counter what they're saying, if it's right or wrong. They want to phase out fire co-responders and replace it with the community responder model. And with the information we got from SWASFT, it never really stacked up why they was doing it. It never, there's no benefit to the community, and in actual fact, we feel it's a worse scenario than what we've got now. And so obviously we contacted local councillors, MPs, and raised our concerns. We raised our concerns with the services as well. And that's what we've been doing over the last few weeks. And even today, I've been to a meeting with Devon County Council with their health and social care committee, and following our campaign and obviously members of the public that was represented today, they've unanimously voted to request SWASFT to pause the process, requesting for more data, requesting more confirmation that they can replace it with a better service. So that's a real positive that's come out of today's meeting at Devon County Council. And we hope that other county councils will follow and MPs will follow by requesting SWASFT to do that.
And you quite rightly identify the fact that we wrote to councils, elected members, and MPs, and I think it's fair to say every response we've had has also raised their concerns, particularly the MPs. Number of MPs has subsequently, on the back of what we've written to them and raising the issue, I've written to John Martin, the chief exec of SWASFT, highlighting their concerns and wanting more information. I think what is important to acknowledge is that it does seem to be financially driven. Whether that's actually correct or not, I don't know, but this is why we need more information. But what SWASFT have said, and they've put this in writing and they've said it in various meetings, is that for each incident a community volunteer responds to, it costs them £20. They've said that for each fire co-responder responder to an incident, it costs 80. Now, how accurate that is, I don't know, but that initially would suggest that it's financial. However, something else that has come out from a meeting of the governors a couple of weeks ago, Mark, was that they currently have, they've been purporting to have 650 community volunteer responders across the southwest region. However, they've only got approximately 450 kits. So while they've got 650 community volunteer responders, none of those can be available at any one time because they've only got 450 kits. Now, of the fire co-responders that are currently in operation, some of those will be providing, as Gavin's attested, 120 hours a week potentially, providing availability to respond to a co-responder call. Community volunteer responders are available for a fraction of that time. Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah, so a community responder only has to guarantee 12 hours a week. And
so we're talking about a tenth.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's really important just to pause there. So if a fire co-responder currently provides 120 hours of availability where they could respond to a co-responder call, SWASFT needs to recruit 10 community volunteer responders to replace that one fire co-responder.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think we would question how viable it is to do that.
Yeah. And the other thing is, when they book on for those 12 hours, they're expected then to go to the nearest ambulance station and pick up that kit and that mobile phone as well on top of that time. So there's movement of equipment all the time.
Whereas you, Gavin, you presumably you are alerted in the same way as any fire call, and that you
Yes,
will respond. Where are the co-responder vehicles based? Are they based at the station?
based at the station. Yeah, so they're kept on station, ready to go. Basically, we have got the option. I have done it in the past. That you can either bring the vehicle home with you. So if I knew I was going to be lone responding for a period of time, I could bring it home and keep it here, and that's it's acceptable. They're happy with that. But generally, due to the location of our station anyway, there's not real much benefit. So it's kept at the station. If it's all ready to go, basically, just put your kit on, get the keys, and you're off. So
Okay. So where they're responding to the nearest ambulance station, Mark, there's presumably not going to be any benefit in terms of response time.
Well, what they do is they book available, go and collect the kit, and then they carry that kit with them for the period of time they're available, and then they've got to return it back to the station after that time.
I understand.
So
Okay.
that's the difference on there. Where you're saying they've only got 450 kits. Now, when you're saying about it's financially, the reason for it's financial, John Martin said today at the committee that it's not financially driven. However, what he did say was that budget is now being moved to the volunteering and community services team to enable them to recruit more. So they've already moved that budget they set aside paying co-responders to that department, who's out actively, obviously, recruiting now.
And I think it's also just worth mentioning, just so obviously listeners are aware, that obviously a co-responder is a blue light response. We can get through red traffic lights, we can get through heavy traffic. Whereas a community first responder is just responding in their own vehicle. They've got no exemptions. So I think it's just worth clarifying that point, which would add obviously the cost of the vehicles. Yes, that's probably explains some of the extra costs associated with a co-responder. But it does mean we are able to get there quickly. So,
But just on the vehicles, Gavin and Mark, my understanding is because Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service see the value of co-responders in the same way that we do. They've taken the view that they've invested in co-responder vehicles. They see this as an investment. So there's at no expense to the ambulance trust, or to my knowledge, it's no expense. But you'll correct me if I'm wrong. The fire service has provided that resource.
Yeah, so so all the fire services in the southwest provide those vehicles. Devon and Somerset have just replaced a new fleet, and I believe, Gavin, you've got a brand new van only turned up a few days before the announcement, wasn't it?
yeah, so it was, yeah, so we all, I think pretty much the majority of in Devon at least, was we used to have like a Ford Cougar. The vehicle now got a Renault Kangoo, which has been well designed. It's been well thought out. They've laid the back out scene, put kit in there. It's been done properly. There is some stations I know, for example, I think it's Crediton. They have like an off-road vehicle, and they use that as a dual corresponding fire vehicle, if that makes sense, rather than having a dedicated corresponder vehicle.
Okay, so clearly the fire service, that would suggest the fire service wasn't privy to this potential change by SWASFT if they've invested very recently in these vehicles, Mark.
Yeah, so that was confirmed today. Dr. John Martin was asked by the council, when did you make the decision, and who made the decision, and was there any consultation of the decision? And the decision was made between SWASFT executive and the board, SWASFT board, and it was confirmed today to the county council that no consultation had taken place, and that would have been an opportunity for us to help improve the service, and by identifying where they need to improve it, we could have come up with a better solution, rather than them going down the route of what they're doing themselves. But yeah, that was early this year that they made the decision, and then communicated with the services. It would have been April, May time.
So I think that's really, that's the first time I've heard that. That's interesting to know, because that's how it felt to us, that the fire services were caught on the back foot with regards to this, and that there hadn't been the appropriate and necessary consultation with blue light partners as you would have expected to have taken place. And I think if that consultation had taken place, certainly if the proposal still would have gone ahead, we would have all been somewhat more understanding and prepared for it. Whereas at the moment, we do feel like we've got our backs to the wall, trying to argue that this proposal is paused until we've had further dialogue with fire and rescue services, and more importantly, SWASFT. But the other thing I noted when you were talking, Mark, was that John Martin, the chief exec of SWASFT, said this is not financially driven, which I find interesting, because if it's not financially driven, I'm trying to really understand what is the logic behind this proposal, because and I think I said this in open questions, public questioning at one of the governor's meetings. How do you know what if you're not capable or able to recruit the number of community volunteer responders that you need to just to cover the current number of fire co-responders? And the response was, if that's the case in 12 months' time, then we review the decision. Well, my view is that surely you do all that due diligence long in advance of going ahead with this particular proposal, because by not doing so, potentially you're going to get a number of current fire co-responders who are either looking to have that role taken away from them, or having had it taken away from them over the 12 months, who will then say, well, what's, you know, how much longer are we going to be carrying on doing this after the experience we've just had? It makes no sense whatsoever, the way that they've undertaken this particular act. What do you
Can
think?
can I just add a little bit there? So it's a good point you sort of raise there, Tristan. Basically, where we provide corresponding cover over the past, so many years, we've had people join as community responders. They do it for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. Two of the people who I know that done it, they use it as a stepping stone to then join the ambulance service, if that makes sense. So it's a bit of volunteer work, get their foot in the door. So when this was all brought about, saying your station could lose its corresponding capability within the next 12 months, so I sort of said, that's all well and good. I said, if that's what you want to do, that's what I want to do. But let's pretend, as you were saying, they recruit correspondents in my area, and then a year down the line, for whatever reason, they leave, move on, and we're then left with nothing. Are they then going to get hold of the fire service and say, oh, is there any chance you can ask them guys if they want to have their vehicle back and do some corresponding for us again? That's the bit we don't quite understand, like you sort of allude to, is they're saying, oh, if at the 12-month period nothing's happened, we haven't recruited anyone. They're basically saying, well, if no one comes forward, then we may actually keep you on for a period of time, which I don't think is I don't know quite how you would word it, really.
I think, just to echo what you've just said there, Gavin, and I did allude to this to John in that particular governance meeting, is that when you've got a volunteer who's giving you 12 hours, or minimum of 12 hours, could be more, they could quite easily walk away. They could walk away because they can't provide the commitment, thinking that they originally could, or they walk away because of the volume of calls that they're receiving, or they could walk away from the fact that it's quite, it can have a significant impact on your mental health if you are regularly responding to quite delicate, emotive, intense incidents. So they can walk away at the drop of a hat fairly quickly. Whereas currently, we've got firefighters where this is their job. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, it's on call, but it's still their job. They are committed to the fire service, and will be, and are likely to be committed to the fire service for a number of years. They're not going to be walking away at a drop of a hat. So I think you're absolutely right. The trust, the ambulance trust, is running a huge risk that they're not able to recruit the numbers that they're hoping to recruit, or even if they are able to recruit the appropriate numbers, those numbers could fall away quite quickly in the rural areas, particularly. And a thorough, proper consultation and an open, grown-up dialogue would have allowed us the opportunity to have that discussion, to kick that around, and to work out whether the proposal is as robust as what John Martin seems to think it is, because I've got deep concerns that it's fundamentally flawed.
Can I just confirm also with regards to costs? I know we mentioned the £80 that the fire service paid SWASFT. The SWASFT paid the fire service, but SWASFT only reimbursed the fire service if the co-responders meet their response standard. So what that means to say is if they don't meet it within their times they suggest, then the fire service don't get paid for that call anyway, and it's a cost to the fire service. So again, what they're saying is about costs and that's already written into the agreements.
But you will know, because we've had conversations with the relevant chief fire officers in the Southwest, that all of them collectively see the value of corresponding.
Yes.
All of them will incur a cost, even with the full reimbursement from SWASFT of £80. There will be an additional cost, by and large,
Which the
and
fire
they are
service
more than
is providing.
happy to accept that extra financial burden because they see the value of fire co-responders in terms of community safety, public safety, recruitment and retention of on-call, and the fact that it's the right thing to do and it's the direction local and national government want in terms of blue light collaboration.
Yes.
And this is what I was going to come on to as well. And this would be better for those who are going to be watching on our YouTube channel, who can see these slides. But if I take us back to 2002, when we had the independent review of the Fire and Rescue Service, that was around the second national strike, we had Sir George Bain provide a in-depth report. Let's put that on the screen there. So that was the future of the Fire and Rescue Service, reducing risk, saving lives. And within that report, he spoke about if services responded to more medical emergencies, they would provide extra support to an already outstretched ambulance service. This is 23 years ago. And as Gavin said earlier on, while the number of calls for the fire service can be going down, particularly life-threatening incidents, the opposite is happening within the ambulance service. Their calls are going up. And there are more and more life-threatening incidents that they're responding to. So the point I'm trying to make, and I'll bring up another slide here where Sir George Bain has said, in addition, there should be benefits arising out of an increase in co-responding schemes. The NHS has estimated that if cases where life-threatening calls receive a response within 8 minutes, there's that 8 minutes again, from 75% to 90%, this would affect around 300,000 patients and save the economy 3.6 billion through the reduction in lives lost. So you're talking about serious money there. And John Martin has said this isn't about money, and nor should it be about money. It should be about saving lives. But when there are cost efficiencies that are available in terms of the overall impact on the NHS, it seems that we're definitely moving with this proposal. We're definitely moving in the wrong direction. So, 23 years ago, it was being recommended that co-responder schemes were either introduced or expanded. And we seem to be going backwards, Mark. What's happening?
Yeah, it seems that was recognised then, and since then, and I think you're going to show a slide in a minute about the University of Hertfordshire and the NFCC trials with regards to emergency medical response, their broadening responsibilities. It seems to be a blocker all the time. But what we're finding that there's other services that's expanding their co-responding.
Yep.
And expanding their emergency medical response, and there's even services doing falls teams and things like that. and yet in Devon and Somerset, or in the southwest, we're going the other way.
So you're absolutely right. So there, fast forward on to 2017, which is what now, 8 years ago. There was a piece of work, January 2017, by a number of academics. I'll make sure that the link to this document, or all the documents we're going to refer to, are in the show notes. But the conclusion of that particular report was that the provision of basic life support, including defibrillation by first or co-responders, is associated with quicker response times. And if response times improve, so potentially can outcomes for patients experiencing out of hospital cardiac arrest if they are appropriately defibrillated. Evidence for training fire crews in advance life support skills is sparse and suggests it may not be the best way forward. Evidence for cost benefit or cost effectiveness of co-responders is limited and based in other countries with different emergency system design, which may create issues of transferability. There is good evidence for the effectiveness of fire prevention schemes, including examples of cost effectiveness studies. There is some evidence for potential impact of firefighter intervention in other areas of safety and health. And then there were a number of recommendations following that. So there's a common theme with regards to co-responder schemes in fire and rescue services, and we can go back 23 years. But we're actually going backwards in the southwest. You're absolutely right to highlight the fact that other services in different parts of the country are actually expanding their co-responder schemes. We know there is some really good work in Lincolnshire. We know Kent do co-responding. We know Humberside do co-responding. There are a number of other services that are doing co-responding. So it just seems to me that SWASFT are a bit of a outlier with regards to this. And I think we're certainly hoping that this idea doesn't spread. And we're certainly hoping that SWASFT will come to the table and have some proper grown-up conversations to see whether we can get this paused, but ideally overturned.
Yeah. There's one thing also SWASFT are actually saying is that their community responders can provide an enhanced level of clinical care through their clinical hubs. However, what they're not saying is that the fire co-responders do the same as well. So I don't know whether Gavin can explain how we communicate with the clinical hubs.
Yeah, so basically, if we get to a call and we need to update the ambulance response hub with what's going on with the patient, or even just to find out how long the ambulance is going to be, we've got a mobile phone that's supplied by SWASFT, and we can just dial through and speak to someone pretty much straight away if we need any clinical guidance. The community first responders have a smartphone, which I think allows them just to do the same, obviously voice call, but they can actually, I think, literally like text message their control room to get or send observations direct to them if needed, basically.
This is a report from November 2017. This was commissioned by the NJC, National Employers, that came up, and this is through the Hertfordshire University. And it came up with a list of key findings, which I'm about to put on the screen. And it talks about the financial benefits there, Mark. Do you just want to talk us through that if you can read it?
Yeah, so the what was proven of part of these studies by Hertford University and the financial impact is that a return on investment for every £1 spent, you get a £4.41 return in investment. But then what that also then showed was a cashable saving of £2.90 for every £1 spent to the public purse. And that was cashable savings that is available. to the NHS. Now, if you adjust that to inflation, you're looking at a £3.60 cashable saving to every £1 spent in today's figures. And that is evidenced. And, you could go back through the report and that's well documented how they've come up with that.
I think this is, I'm going to get on my soapbox now. This is where I get extremely frustrated because there's a wealth of information out there that demonstrates the health and financial benefits of corresponding, and particularly broadening the role, corresponding within broadening the role. We're in 2025. We've referenced the report from 23 years ago, and I do get frustrated that we're not really making progress at a national level. The FRSA attended a meeting with the Fire Minister, the current Fire Minister, Alex Norris, a few weeks ago, and I highlighted this. I highlighted what's happening in the southwest, and the fact that it appears that the government departments are not talking to one another. So the Department of Health is not talking to what is now the Minister for Housing and Communities and Local Government to come together and realise the benefits of all these reports that are out there that are evidence-based, so that we can actually deliver corresponding on a much wider scale. We can deliver broadening of the role on a much wider scale. We can help reduce the cost to the NHS. We can help with regards to the recruitment of attention for on-call. We can help culture within the fire service by broadening of the role. I seem to speak about this on every podcast, and I think for good reason, because it's nothing but positive by doing this. Everybody you speak to privately will say the same thing, but we're not moving forward at a national level. I know you particularly are doing everything you possibly can with your FRSA hat on, and you can be commended for that, as other officials are. And we will continue to bang this particular drum because we're the only ones doing it.
And that's the frustrating bit for us. It feels like we've been saying all this, and I did listen to a few of your podcasts again over the recent weeks. Like you say, every one of them it says about broadening the role, and whoever you're speaking to, whether it's chief fire officers, whether it's a lead of the NFCC, or whatever, agreeing with us that it's better, we should be doing this, and yet there's a blocker. And there should be some sort of national procedure process that we all sign up to. Now, what's available, if you just look at our service within Devon and Somerset, we've only got 20 stations doing co-responding out of 83 stations. Just imagine if we co-responded at all those stations, how much better our communities would be served. The reduction to the health sector, the health care, by these interventions, reducing people having to need to be in hospital for as long, because the delays is having a knock-on effect to longer stays in hospital, and all this has got to be taken into account.
Okay, so hopefully over the course of the last hour or so, we've provided a raising awareness in terms of what corresponding is, the benefits of corresponding, raised awareness with regards to the campaign that is still ongoing. And we seem to be the only union championing this particular campaign. That's how it feels from the outside. Is that correct, Mark? What's happening locally?
And that's all we're seeing locally. We don't hear anything at all from the other representative bodies with regards to co-responding. Nothing at all.
Okay. Gavin, I cannot thank you enough for giving up your time on what is, you've said earlier, your first podcast. I thought you were brilliant. You were a complete and utter natural. You've educated the listener. You've educated me, certainly, with regards to how co-responders work, the benefits of them. So I thank you for that, giving your time, and I'm sure all the listeners are grateful for an insight as to what it's like to be a co-responder and on a station that does co-responding. Mark, thank you very much. Keep up the good fight with the campaign in the Southwest. I know you're working tirelessly down there, and I commend you for that. The campaign goes on. We will not give up because we do believe we are the right side of the argument. If you've been listening and you want to know more about co-responding, then visit our website, frsa.org.uk. Is there anything you want to say as a last point there, Gavin?
No, well, just firstly, obviously, thanks to yourself and Mark for inviting me along. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, this will raise a few conversations, and hopefully, get the corresponding scheme at least discussed, and hopefully with SWASFT, and hopefully, just have to wait and see what the future holds, I guess.
Yeah, we'll do everything we possibly can. Mark, thank you for your time.
Okay, Tristan, thank you. And all we want is to improve the service to our communities, and that's what we want to do. And it will be a shame to actually lose this service.
I totally agree. Okay, thank you to you both. And for those listening and those watching, please subscribe to the podcast and our YouTube channel and be the first to find out when the latest edition of Priority Message hits the social media. In the meantime, if you'd like a particular topic discussed, please message the FRSA via our contacts page on our website, frsa.org.uk. In the meantime, thanks so much and listen to the next one. Bye-bye.